Hello. How is everybody doing? I think I have everything set up okay. So we will see. Let me know if you can't hear me and leave a message on where you are and what's going on in your life right now. And oh, hey, Kelly. Any questions you might have. We have open questions today. I'm Tracy Lenz. I'm a petroleum engineer. I'm also the owner of Pecan Tree, and we do mineral appraisals for oil and gas. And we also have pecanestimate.com, and that is like a Zillow's estimate or a Kelly Blue Book for oil and gas minerals. So something you can DIY and go and find your own mineral value. So we're doing mostly every Friday office hours where, it's kind of hard to find people to answer random questions on this topic. So I'm opening it up, and whatever questions you have on oil and gas, if it's oil and gas, business related, non-business related, anything land, legal. I mean, I'm not a lawyer. I'm an engineer. I'm just like a minor engineer. So feel free to put it in the chat what your question is. And you can also email it to kelly@pecantriog.com, and she'll make sure it gets to me if you want to make it anonymous. So today, granted, to do like a chill Friday office hours. I think they're just going to have to be relatively low key for this to be a sustainable thing for me. So we'll just continue and running with what we've been doing the last couple weeks. And again, if you have questions, I'll take them live, but otherwise I'm going to be hitting questions that I had throughout the week, sent in from different sources, whether an email or something that most of them are emails or messages that I'll get randomly throughout the different platforms that we're on. So mostly we're on YouTube and LinkedIn. That's the majority of places, but you can also email us. My email is tracy@pecantriog.com if you want to email me directly. I am not the best at getting back to people. I'm working on that. So with that, we're gonna wing it today. So bear with me. And the nice thing is, with this being a live, there's not many people watching it live, and I can go back and just edit down the interesting things later. So we'll go ahead and flip to, I'll go ahead and get a window. We'll just look at some current events. And, I mentioned in the past that I'm not the biggest current event person, but when it comes to oil and gas, I do keep track of how it's affecting oil and gas. And then we'll also hit all the current events that we've had locally, as in local to Pecan Estimate. We've had a lot of changes in our platform lately, and I think it'd be fun to go over some of those. And I know that it's caused a lot of questions, for better or worse. Like, it's good questions usually. So we'll let me get a nice safe website open before I start sharing my screen. So we'll start with I don't know, what's y'all's favorite news sources? Like, I have mine, but if you have a favorite news source, it's so hard to find a good news source these days. So I've started using Ground News, but yeah, we'll see what Ground News has. And again, none of this is sponsored at all. I wish, right? Okay, so we'll go ahead and share that and go from there. Okay, so yeah, I've liked Ground News because it seems to be somewhat in the middle. At least it lets me know when it's not in the middle. So one of the big questions that I got sent my way this week was how the tariffs and the excuse me, allergies are still getting me. How the tariffs and the OPEC increase in production, like how that's all coming together. Like, right, because if you have tariffs that increase the price of steel, then how are you going to produce more if it costs more to drill? So, yeah. So, let's just look together to see what headlines are happening. Let's focus on just U.S. oil and gas. Oh, hi, Mom. So Alice Hooten is Mom. Oh, I didn't even know you knew about Ground News, but I guess it makes sense. I think the algorithms know that me and her talk all the time, and it just says, oh, if you've looked at this, maybe this person will like it too. Okay, so oh, that's March. See, I don't know. I thought that this would rank it in a little more of a chronological thing. But so one of the news stories that hit at the same time that the tariffs hit were that OPEC Plus released an unexpected amount of oil, announced that they were going to start producing an unexpected amount of oil beyond what they were already producing. And so that caused oil and gas prices to start falling. Let's just look at some of these. But it happened at the same time as the tariffs, so everybody, not everybody, lots of people were confused as to which one was impacting it. Well, yeah, looking up oil and gas is going to, producer can mean so many different things. Could it slow emissions? Sure, but experts say at great overall cost. Yeah, I agree with that one, that it's, it could be good, right, if we're doing less for the environment, I guess, but that's kind of I think that one's a little silly. Yeah, no, okay, well, another, I like Wall Street Journal also. We'll look at commodity prices, and for that one, I think I'll just pull up. Let's see. Do I have? So I'll show you how to get to Yahoo. We'll just do Yahoo commodity prices, and like say that you don't have all the shortcuts that I have saved, and you want to see what things are trading for and get to things yourself. Here's what I would do. So I'm at Yahoo Finance. I don't have any particular affiliation with Yahoo. It's just one that's on the top of my mind. And so we'll just, over here, crude oil is usually at the top. This is usually WTI, West Texas Intermediate crude oil. So we'll just go ahead and click on that. And this is the thing to really watch. So we have crude oil. So we're at about $61.5 today. So this is it always zooms in much more closely than any of us should really care about unless you're a day trader. So if we zoom out and we look at this drop from $71 down to 61, 62, this is when that OPEC Plus story came out. And that's the main thing that impacted it there. And that was about a week ago. So we are currently running the new price deck through our model, and all of that will be on our website soon. That's happening as I talk right now. Actually, it's what I was doing right before this. But this new price deck so here's what we are today. And then if you wanted to see what it's going to do in the future, we have the futures over here. So we have historical data, and then we have futures. So if I click on futures, then I can see this is, so each month going out into the future has a contract name, and that it's traded like stock in a way. I mean, it's not like stock, but each one of these months is a contract that they're settling, like this is how many barrels I'm going to buy for a certain amount. And so this price is like the settled price. So this is actually showing that they're, at least short term, expecting prices to go lower because we're seeing it's going from 61 to 60 to 58, 59, and then it kind of just bounces around 60 for the next 10 years or so. This moves quite frequently. We've talked about this in past live streams, but this is, if this is going to be the biggest thing when it comes to oil and gas valuation is commodity prices. So I think that all the tariff stuff is too soon to really be making an impact on how much it actually costs to produce the oil, because that's more of like an input, the cost of drilling and the cost of producing, and that takes a little bit. There are some predictions that will happen instantly, but the thing to watch are the news stories about demand or supply. So anything that's impacting world supply, and that's why OPEC Plus saying that they're going to have more oil put out to the market is such a big deal, because you have supply and demand. And so if we have the cost going up because of tariffs, that will eventually hit supply. But if demand is down either from something like COVID, or if supply is up globally from something else, I mean, it's all just supply demand. So y'all can't even see my hands. I was like doing this thing, but anyway. Okay. So that's oil. Now, some of y'all have minerals in areas that are very gas centered. And then there's the in-between, which is the NGLs, which is the natural gas liquids, which are the things like gasoline, jet fuel, propane, ethane, things that are hydrocarbons, and they are, it depends on what temperature and pressure and process they are that determines if they're gas or if they're liquid. So a lot of times they're produced as gas, if you think of the same way that water can be steam, or it could be, something you can drink in a glass, right? Liquid or gas. Hydrocarbons are the same way. So propane, a lot of times there's liquid propane that, you have in your tank if you live out in the boonies, or that you put, running your grill out back, like the liquid propane tanks. That propane can be produced from the ground in gas form and then sent to the plants, like those big refinery plants that have the big tall stacks. And that can take that really heavy gas that has these like lots of different components in it. And if you remember from like high school chemistry, like the C1, C2, like if C1 is methane, then you have C2, C3, C4, C5, C6, all the different number of carbons that are attached. That's the ethane, pentane, propane, like all those different, I put them out of order right there. But those are all the different anes. And then eventually you get to something that's too heavy to put it into for it to be produced as a liquid or as a gas. Sorry. You get something too heavy, like too many carbons together, that it's always going to be a liquid. And that's why you have, that's when you get into like the really heavy tars and the darker oils and things that just have a higher component. The more complex oils, those are usually worth more because they usually have more thermal energy, just without getting too into it. But yeah, so that's where I was going with that, is that there's natural gas prices, which are also relatively easy. So oil's the easiest one to find, usually if you're looking on like a news site or Bloomberg or Wall Street, wherever you're looking. So if I look up crude oil is usually on the front page. Natural gas is a little harder to find. So we'll sometimes they have it where if you start just searching natural gas, you'll see natural gas. So this is the equals F means futures, but you can get to the approximate where you're looking to go by any, whether it's the NG equals futures or just NG. Usually NG is the code. This is at Henry Hub, as I've mentioned before, which is a place in southern Louisiana. So it's what it's trading for there. And if we go to summary, this gets us to that same page that we were looking at before. If I scroll down under all the giant advertisements, we can just zoom in, make the advertisements not show up. So again, we'll go to the 1 month again. So similar to oil, this is going down also. Gas is a little harder to tie to events just because, like specific news stories, just because there's different news stories that affect it, right? So weather affects natural gas. So the fact that, we're getting into the warmer months could cause it to go down, and it might not be anything related to any news story that's political, right? It's just the weather. So that one's a little harder to tie, but April 4th was when most of those news stories came out. So there was a reaction, it looks like. But if we look at the 6 month overall, we are up for the 6 month trend on natural gas prices. This time 6 months ago, we were down at like $2.60, and right now we're at $3.50. So if you think of if you had any other product where you bought a lot of it, and it went from $2.50 to $3.50, essentially, that's quite a big jump. Now this is just what it's trading for at Henry Hub, and so if you have a gas well that's producing any amount of gas, you probably aren't seeing $3.50 on your statement. First of all, because there's usually a 2 month lag between today's price and what the statements are sending out. So at least two months, sometimes 3. Usually gas is a little longer than oil. So probably we'll just say 3 months. So let's see, March, February. So probably about January prices is what you'd be getting if you were getting paid right now for natural gas on your statements. And so you're probably seeing at most, well, we were actually about the same back in January, but let's say you're looking at a November statement, you'd be seeing something closer to at most $2.80 or so on your check, and then the local pricing to that area. And just as a reference, if you're West Texas natural gas, it's probably closer to under $1 if it's positive at all, just because there's been so much natural gas in West Texas that it's kind of choked itself to where there's too much supply. So natural gas is less of a global commodity because it's just harder to transport globally. That's what the LNG transport, facilities are trying to solve. And so if we have oil being affected by global demand, then that same thing's happening with gas, but it's harder to get different places, so it's all very much more localized. So we have the local supply and demand, and if you think of West Texas, how much natural gas there is versus how cold it is, it's a different dynamic than like Canada or Germany or even the East Coast or California, right? All of those places, there's either the people to supply ratio is a lot different than a West Texas ratio. So that's been an ongoing thing for about 6 months to a year in West Texas. So just keep note of that, especially if your contract makes you pay if it goes negative. So I've had owners that came across that before where they like, what? I've never had a bill before. But if you've owned the oil and gas for longer than 4 or 5 years, this is not the first time in the last 4 or 5 years that this has happened. So I think 2021, maybe 2022. I would pull it up on the screen, but I'm not allowed to based on where I get my data from. So I can only just talk to it in general terms. I can't show the actual hub pricing. So we'll just talk to it in general terms. West Texas went very, very negative. Also, it was about a year or two after COVID, before the Ukraine war, kind of in there. So we will hop back to some of the changes on pecanissement because I personally think that's more interesting. But I am trying to hit things that are more global to more people right now, and we are still rolling out this. So this is a little bit of a my stream, my luxury, right, type of thing. So let's see. Well, I have lots of tabs open. this is what I see on the back end. I can see like stream health, how many viewers, how many likes. Make sure to like this stream also. That really does help get it out, like while we're on that. So I can't see who's watching, so don't worry. I don't know who you are if you're just watching it. Okay. Let me hop back to pecan estimate. And now, actually, let me switch back to here so I can arrange my screens. So, hi, Scott, Lynn. It's a good, I don't know if that's a last name or a middle name. That's my middle name. It's a good name. So, I've been approached and given a lease for helium exploration in Kentucky. Would really appreciate any knowledge or recommendations you would have. You know, these live streams are kind of fun because I never know what question I'm going to get. And the number of times I've been asked about helium exploration in Kentucky is now 1. So congratulations. I will say off the bat that helium is generally outside of my area of expertise, but it is produced a lot of very similar ways in some areas. It's part of a lot of gas streams, and generally, I know very limited about helium, but what I know is that it can tell you about the source of the gas and how deep of a source and how close to the original like volcanic rocks there are, because the closer you get to the mantle, I think you get more helium or different types of helium. So that is not helpful at all to you, but the approach and given a lease for helium exploration in Kentucky. So I'll just talk generally about what I would do, just taking it as a broad brush answer, that if you have a lease and it's for a mineral product that's under the ground, and we don't really think of helium as minerals, but normally any type of inert gas is considered, most states consider it a part of the mineral estate. Usually the things that don't fall under the mineral estate are things like water or the pore space itself. But any precious mineral, any like lithium, gold, oil, gas, that's usually all included in the mineral estate. But it is something like all of these things can be separated. So first of all, you can make the lease specifically only for helium, and that's more normal than not normal. So it probably does say if they've proposed given a lease. So you have a lease in hand. So that'd be one thing to check, is make sure that the lease is related to as small of a land as possible. So if you have, let's just put an example out there. If you have 13 different 1 acre parcels that are scattered across Kentucky, I would not make a lease that covers all 13 of those parcels. I would make 13 different leases, or at least try to keep them separated. And normally the distinction between what would require a separate lease versus the same lease is usually a mile by mile section. So Kentucky has the public land surveying system, so you'd have the township range section thing going on there. And so I would just keep it to 1 township range section size piece in each lease. That is a place that sometimes the lessees try to cut corners, is by including a bunch of lands in one lease. The reason that's not great, it's not the worst thing, but it's not great because there's usually terms that if any of those properties are contributing to that term, then it kind of checks the box for all of them. And it's more ideal if someone comes in and just if this was an oil and gas lease, for example, if they come in and drill 1 well and start producing 1 well on 1 plot of land, you want the opportunity for someone else to come in and drill the rest of the plots of land. But if you include all of that in 1 lease, then that person that only drilled 1 well has rights to all of that, unless you have, they call them pew clauses, or Sometimes continuous development takes care of that. Different things and when I say PUGH, it's PUGH. When I first heard that, I thought it was poo. I was like, how is that a clause name? Is it that bad? No. PUGH. It means if something doesn't happen, it will kind of just disintegrate out of it'll go away. So it's not a word that I typically use in my normal lexicon, but that's what it's always used for. So you can have either horizontal PUGH clauses or vertical PUGH clauses, where if a certain amount of land is developed, all the rest of it gets released and you can lease it to somebody else. Or if a certain depth is developed, all the other depths get released and you can lease it to somebody else. And so that protects you against if they, if they just come in and do one thing and try to hold the whole of it. So I don't know how much you necessarily have, but that would be one thing. And then the other thing to look for is a lot of minerals have state leases that need to be public domain as to what the state is leasing for. And so the states had to go through and decide what their leasing terms are, because whenever there's state lands and there's interesting things underneath it, the state's not usually drilling it. The state's not usually producing it. It's usually a private operator. And so they're having to lease it to them also. But because that's public lands, that has to be disclosed publicly how much they're leasing it for. So that's another way to get some information if you're anywhere near any public lands. And if you went to I think you could just Google, again, this is not one that I'm as familiar with, but if you go to the Kentucky, a lot of times this would fall under the Oil and Gas Commission, but if you just search for Kentucky helium state leases or something, you might find some around you. And then there also might be some minimums for what things can be leased for and norms. And helium is outside of the normal range for oil and gas in terms of royalty rates, but that'd be something I'd be looking for. Sometimes if you go to things like caliche, which is the gravel they put down on roads, or if you go to any other types of minerals, sometimes the royalty rates are much lower, but depending on how adjacent it is and how in demand it is, it can get much higher. So checking what the normal royalty rates are. And then if it's any way significant at all, and my definition of significant might be different than your definition of significant, I would have a lawyer review the terms, like a lawyer that's familiar with the state, in this case, Kentucky's lease terms, because there's always new things that are forming and new gotchas that people are trying to get through, and new case law that covers different things. And so that probably would cost at a minimum of $1,000 or $2,000 for a lawyer to review a lease. I'm sure that there is a wide range on that, but at least for oil and gas leases, that's a very typical starting point. So when I say if it's worth it to you, that's kind of the ballpark I would look at to say, okay, if I was really wrong on this lease, would I be kicking myself for not spending $1,000, or is it $1,000 potential and I'd be using it all if I spent $1,000 on a lawyer? So that's always my advice is to try to go to a legal professional if you can whenever you're doing a lease, because leases can last a very long time. I know that on most leases it says 3 to 5 years on oil and gas leases, but if they're meeting those terms, a lot of those terms can extend it until way past the 3 to 5 years until the terms are done. So then it's until the wells stop producing for a lot of these. So yeah. Hopefully that helped a little bit. Again, I'm much more familiar with the oil and gas side, but there is helium that is produced in oil and gas, natural gas streams. And a lot of times people do get it broken out and paid for separately. And so that's really the only point. Usually actually helium or other inert gases are a nuisance where the pipelines don't want a certain amount of nitrogen or carbon dioxide or anything that's not a carbon. So that's usually where I'm more familiar with it, where it's more of a nuisance, but it's always interesting to see what's happening across the country. Okay, so, let's see if I can move this thing up a little bit so it's not like over my face exactly. Doop, doop. There. Okay, so this is, get out of, I'm logged into somebody else's account and I probably shouldn't have their stuff on live streaming. Let me hide my screen real quick and log out. Okay. Okay, so we've recently switched from having portfolios as something that everybody has access to now portfolios. We're collecting everything into like a toolbox called Portfolio and making that available as a subscription. So it just was launched or not even launched, it's like soft launched this last couple days. And so it's not, the documentation's not fully on the website, but I did want to talk through a couple of things in case. I imagine anyone that's watching this stream right now probably is a little more familiar with our stuff, unless you just happen to come across us, and welcome. Hi, I'd love to see you here. But if I imagine with our normal audience is probably people who are like in the weeds or have found us, and I really appreciate how a lot of y'all are real supportive. But we do have this platform we've been developing and just try to keep y'all up to date with what we're doing. So we have, when you log in, you can still like search around and go to the different places. So I actually don't even have, I was going to go to Kentucky to like poke around there, but we don't even have Kentucky on the website yet. We have, I have it on the back end, but I don't have it rolled out to the website, and including also Michigan, we don't have yet. Any of the kind of, if you look at this map here, we have the kind of central highlighted areas, and then anything that's not highlighted here, we haven't rolled out to the website yet. It's all just on the back end. It's part of our plan this year to roll it out. But you can still go and create a property, or a tract, as we call it. We did switch from the word property to tract because it made more sense to most people that we polled. So we now have tracts. And you can zoom in to the area that you're familiar with, or you can select a county and go to it that way. And it'll zoom you on in. And then you can find a certain like township range section by going through it here. That one's not as cool, so let's find one that's a little more activity going on. There we go. Okay. So when you click any of these, it will highlight it and circle it, and you have to log in to create and save, but it costs nothing to create an account. And so you would just like click sign up or click login. And you can either sign up with just your email and not set a password, and then just whenever you click here, we'll just send you a link and you just verify it's you by going and clicking that link to log in. Or you can sign up this way, and you can use Google and Discord if you'd like to link it to either of those accounts and use their security and verification as opposed to using ours. And actually that is more secure because they're a much bigger company than we are in terms of how many people they have on their security staff. So I actually didn't know before starting this that these options were more secure. But yeah, I used the Google authentication myself. So I'm just going to log in. And so if you are Google authenticated, if you have an email and password, you can just like put it in here. You can put your email link in here if you want to just do it this way. And this works for anyone's. If you signed up any other way, you can just put your email in here and it will send you a link. It will work for anybody. But I'm going to log in through Google. I think Jason is the only one who logs in through Discord. Discord is like a very gamer-centric thing, but developer gamer, and so I always joke that Jason's probably the only one that logs in through that. I don't know, maybe JD does too. I think JD listens to this. She'll have to let me know if she logs in through Discord, Google, or none of the above. But, okay. If you have it, it's honestly like 2 clicks like that. I'm always logged into my Google here, so it makes it really easy. But so our new portfolio system has portfolios, tracks, and wells. Now before, most people at this point only have tracks because portfolios and wells are part of the new plan that we're rolling out. And I think it's pretty cool. So first we'll start with tracks because there's been some changes there. And we won't spend the whole live doing this. I just, until we get another question that comes in, I will continue just like sharing what we're doing until then. So again, feel free to like ask questions, even if it's like on what we're looking at or anything unrelated. Happy to switch topics. It's probably too easy to make me switch topics. So if that gives you any indication. So we always go to West Texas. I'll go over here. Ooh, zoom down. So you can zoom to where you are interested in, and it'll have any tracks that you have in the system. It'll be on this map, or you can click and it will go straight to it. You can also search for, if you're looking for a certain county, you can search for that county. If you're looking for a certain type of interest, like I just want to look at my working interest right now, it'll show me where my working interest is. Or if you're looking for a certain portfolio, then you can filter to just that portfolio also. And clear. And so if you want to add a new track, you can always do it here. But so this is, I think this is a neat little like way to look at it. So the map's just kind of fun. If you click on the link itself, it'll take you to our tracked page. And this is also different than it was before. So before it was just the pecan estimate report, and that was the only thing you'd see. But with this new change, we're moving to where you have like a home page for each tract, and then you have any reports that you've purchased will be archived along the side here. So where we're going with portfolios and wells is that you'll be able to manually like keep up with what wells you have, check the amount they've produced, make sure you're getting paid for all the ones you can't, you should be. We have alerts coming soon. We have file management coming soon. So if you want to keep a lease with the well, or if you want to put your deed with the portfolio, that can all be stored together. And what it was doing right there, that was the first time I opened up this property with our new system. And so it was building the wells. So this manual well interest, it was building that the first time. So because we just switched to it just recently. So we have a new map layout here where you can see more clearly. This is a dynamic map. It's just not just a picture. And then you can see like kind of as you zoom out a little easier now. And then with this is new here is pecan scope. So if I did not have pecan portfolio logged in, so if I just had tracks up here next to the word pecan, then all I would see is a free estimate is what we call it. So it's a wider range than this one. And it's using our like that high, mid, low type of heat map on the front page to get that free estimate. Because I mean, if you wanted to, you could go and like take that map and figure out what things are. We're just doing that math for you. So this takes our pecan scope, which is a new product. So pecan scope is less intensive computationally to calculate, but it uses more robust information than that free map. So it's like a nice happy medium for a lot of people to keep track of things. And we can also estimate the well revenue with that same like higher level, like less computational effort number to get to where it's something maintainable for us and for users, so that we can offer this for every single property, whether or not a pecan estimate's been purchased or not. So you can still purchase pecan estimates, and that's still stored here. And the pecan estimates still have all the information that we had prior, where the sales estimate, the dashboard, the lease estimate, beyond producing, which is really our bread and butter, where we can let you know not only what the wells are worth, but what everything that hasn't been drilled yet or that might be drilled should be worth, what the market should pay for that, because that's usually where people get slighted, and they lose their money when they don't consider this when they're selling. This is also where, we'll show new permits, new drilling, new wells, all the monthly revenue and value per well. This is the same report we've had the last year or so. Maybe, are we on 2 years yet? Almost. Year and a half, I guess. And then we also have our beyond producing, where you can see which reservoirs we're including and what the value is per each reservoir. And we go into more information there. And then, of course, you can print this report. It's frozen in time. It's a dashboard that you can check out. You can see our commentary on the sales value and all this. But a lot of people don't need this report all the time, and we know that. And so the first step was rolling this out. But the next step was, okay, if there's 3 numbers that most people are looking at if they're looking at this report frequently, it's pecan estimate and monthly revenue, because you're looking to see what are your wells doing, and are there any big shifts and things that you should just be aware of. And so that's where Pecan Portfolio comes in, where we have the scope and we have the well revenue, and then we also have insights, where it takes all the things we know about this property and puts it more in financial terms. So a lot of people are more familiar with financial terms than they are oil and gas terms. And so we're trying to put it in language that you can do something with if you're wanting to do something with what you are looking at. And usually that is something financial, because usually people aren't owning oil and gas minerals just because it's a pretty view or a gift, and it's sentimental. I mean, there's a lot of family minerals that people hold on to because grandpa said never sell. But I think that it's real empowering to know why. If it's producing $10 today and grandpa says never sell, well, okay, that's because it's a growth potential. It has a high growth potential. It's like a growth stock. It's something that you hold on for the long term, and you diversify, and you don't put all your eggs in that basket, but you hold on to it so that you have the chance of it increasing. And if you sold it now, you really wouldn't get that much because it's not worth that much. And the income, this is more like the dividends, right? Are you going to get cash flow off of this property, or is this a long-term hold that you're just holding because you might eventually sell, but there's not really cash flow happening in the meantime? And then how certain is all of this? And then if this is our value wave, these things kind of go in waves of activity. And so where on that wave are we for this property? Are we early on and things are just going to start ramping up and get more valuable? Or are we on the tail end? Or are we right in the middle? And that's why you're getting a flood of offers. So we're trying to help you figure out if it's a good time to sell, if you are looking to sell, or if it's a good time to hold. That's ultimately, that's most people, that is what they're looking for when they come to us for a value. So we're trying to help put those things into context. So then we also have the things coming soon, and then we have all the wells that are associated with this. You can see the well list by clicking on wells, and that will take you to a sorted list of just this property's wells and all the information you could ever want to know about this. So it's just one of those scrolling web pages where there's just a lot of columns. And so you can see the wells, latest oil, spud date is when it was started to be drilled, so when the rig was out there and first broke ground. And then you have completion date, first production, latest oil and gas, estimated interest rates, or estimated revenue and working interest rates, not traditional interest rates. It's a decimal interest. And then monthly revenue, monthly expenses, and then the market value of just that well. And all of these are clickable and sortable. And we also include the possible wells that you might have interest in that are maybe they're adjacent to your property. And so if I let's see one of these that has interest here. I can scroll back over and click on the well name. And it will also show me why I have interest in that well. So this is, I'm actually going to pick on a different well. That's a little more fun. I'll do one of the horizontal wells. Those are more fun. Here we go. This one's more fun. Okay, so this Blagrave. I'm probably saying that wrong. I feel that feels wrong, but this pink outline is the tract that you have interest in. And then this well here is this, we're on this wells page. And then we have the, my mouse suddenly got super slow. Wonder who's trying to hack my computer. No. So the reason that we think there's a possibility you have an interest in this well, but we aren't, like we put the financial information up here. So we aren't estimating that you would have any interest in this particular well, but we're including it because you might. And there's a lot of things that go into like how much oil and gas you have, how much interest you have. And if you notice, they kind of like, they're right to where there's like a little tiny bit of overlap. And that could just be an artifact of how it was drawn, or it could be real. Or it could be that this is our assumption of how the well is paying, but maybe really the unit is lopsided and it goes over into, further east. And so we give you the option to see more about it without, without completely excluding it, but in case you wanted to know more about it, or if you have different tracks that also overlap with this well, you can see what other tracks overlap with that well. This is brand new. I'm pretty sure Jason rolled it out like 2 days ago. Jason being our CTO and developer, co-founder, brother. Pretty sure he rolled this out like 2 days ago, something like that. But yeah, so then you can see all of the wells here, and then if you wanted to look at just that properties or just that tracks, or if you want to look at more, you could go to the wells page and see all of your tracks. I probably have too many wells to do this. Maybe not. I only have 328 showing, but it will. It's loading because I have a lot, but. You can also customize which columns you have displayed, and you can filter and export from this page also. So we also make it where you can put as many properties as you want, or as many tracks as you want in a portfolio. Let's see. And if you can have up to 300 tracks in a portfolio right now, just because it gets a little difficult to manage beyond that. So for your sake, we make it where you have to purchase more portfolios, but it's $500 a month for this service right now. So we're still working on some of the portfolio information, like the aggregation, but it's all live and working. And if you want to test it out, run a trial, feel free to just contact me and let me know if you're interested. See, in terms of, we had a question earlier this week. What was it? I was going to mention. One of the features that we used to have for each tract was manual well interest. So we have our estimated well interest, but if it, we'll just click on one of these. If you don't have Pecan Portfolio, you don't have the ability to override the well interest with a different number. You have to use the number that we are currently estimating. So that is one change. If you were using that, then just let us know and we can turn on a trial for Pecan Portfolio until we figure out if we want to include it in the non-subscription version or not. But yeah, just let us know if you want to use manual well interest. It is still an option. It does still work. It just only works it's part of our tool set of things that you can do. So we also have some other, you can get a tract from a well name. So if you know that we'll just go to Borden. And you can search for, let's say that you know that you have an interest in a certain well, but you have no idea what the tract would be associated with that well. Oh, it finally loaded that one thing. We'll go back to that. So let's say that you knew what well, and we're just zooming in to grab a well name. So we'll use this Yeti unit. So you could come to this is part of our Pecan portfolio subscription tool set also. So I'm under the menu here, and this is tracks from wells. So I selected the county, and now I'm just going to type in Yeti unit and spell it right. Hit search. And it's going through our database of wells and seeing if there's anything that looks remotely like that name that you just put in that county. So it's kind of fun to watch it like fly around. So I'm going to zoom out a little again. And there's a lot of stuff to search through. We'll give it a second. And I have it where I can't see my Teams notifications unless I like click and show it like live, and that's very nerve-wracking. So sorry if someone's trying to message me. So we have our Yeti unit that shows up, and it has the API number right underneath it if you want to verify. But if you're getting paid on the 1H and you click on it, we can just, if you're doing several of these, you can just like go through a flow. Or you can close out of this and see what it's highlighting. And so this is what we have as the Yeti unit. So here's our Yeti well that we just clicked on. And so I clicked here, and I can click around, and there's two different units, like one each half of this kind of area here. And so depending on which Yeti well you're getting paid on, if you want to say I'm getting paid here on this well, create tract, and you want to put in that you have a certain interest, you could put in one lease royalty rate and 1 acre, and for now, and just like put it in there, and then like you could figure out your net acreage from there later on, or you could, if you know your net royalty acres, or if you know I have 10 net acres associated with this well, I just don't know where it is, you could put it in that way. So Yeti well, and create the tract, and that automatically does all the same stuff as if you were have drawn it from a legal description. So I think that's a really cool feature. It's sometimes hard to find these wells that you're getting paid on because you'll just have the well name and the county from the operator, and sometimes it's like the Smith well in Andrews County, and you're like, I have no idea even where that is, and I can help you find it. And let's see. We will eventually be adding more features to all of this. We have a lot of tools that we use on the back end to help our appraisals go faster that will be rolling out slowly to include in our portfolio tool set. And so really we're trying to get as many tools to y'all as the users to be able to make the most of the data we have. Y'all get to see my timeline. So we're rolling out as much as we can to let y'all see, like, get the most of what you have. And so let me know if y'all have any questions. We're going to continue to roll out more information about this and make it more just general marketing information on what things are. But yeah, this Pecan portfolio is $500 a month, and that includes everything. So it's not, we don't bill on number of wells or how much you're making or how much you're using it. It's just a flat $500. And then we just, it's $200 a month additional if you want more portfolios. So that's the only two things we're charging. I sometimes am hesitant to put pricing in these type of videos because we're a small company that's young and these things are changing quickly, but I'm just gonna put it out there. That's what it is today. If this is not today that you're watching this, I have no guarantees of what the price will be in the future, but that is what it is today. So, I think that's all for today then. It's kind of a quiet day, like I said, going into this. I did want to show the cool things we've been working on with Pecan Estimate. We are still doing all the appraisals in the background, so this is actually why a lot of this stuff was developed, was to help our appraisals go faster and be able to take on bigger, better appraisals and make the smaller ones more affordable and the bigger ones more achievable, and then rolling that out in a way that everyone can utilize it. So with that, I think, let's see, next week I am available for Friday, so I'm going to have it scheduled. So unless allergies kick my butt again, or, the kid flu comes around, we will be here again next Friday, and feel free to email any questions that you might have. Anything you'd like to see kind of on a regular basis, any news stories that are that give you question. I know that, I don't claim to be an expert on all things, but I am happy to give my opinion, especially if I get it ahead of time and I can think a little more on it or research the context behind the questions. That's really my preferred method, but at the same time, time is just limited. So if only I had 20 to 80 extra hours in a day, I feel like that might contain all the things I'm trying to do and all the things I want to do. But okay, with that, I think that's it. And I hope y'all have a wonderful weekend and a wonderful week ahead of y'all, and hang in there through all the craziness that's in the world, and just focus on the things that are good and in your control, and you'll be just fine. So, all right. Thanks. I will talk to y'all later, and bye.